welcome to Movie of the Year, the only podcast with the science and the screaming to determine the best movie for any given year. This season, we are trekking through 1973, maybe the funkiest year we've ever done on this show. And this is just our second movie. It is The Sting. I'm your host, Greg. And before I introduce today's opponents, enemies, face-off contenders, I have to remind you this is a game show, and I will be awarding points. We are doing silent scoring, so you will not hear the points, but I will be silent scoring every time one of these two gentlemen. Can I call you gentle? Can I call you men? We will see in just 1 second. First off, our first contestant, Mike. Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing so good. I'm ready to flim the flams and gift the gabs.
Gift the gabs. I love it. You have the gift of the gab, and you give everybody the gift of gab.
I'm going to give away. The longer I talk, the more I lose my skill, and the more my face-off contenders win.
Our returning champion is Ryan. Ryan, you won last week on our Westworld show, a movie we decided was not the worst movie that we'd ever reviewed, but it was like very close to it. Do you feel good about that victory?
Westworld, you're on notice because you get any worse, man, you might be last place. Of course, I feel great about that victory, Greg. It was a win for America because I've fought somebody who does not like America. And I think Westworld was about America. I just want all of our listeners already know because they read the news that I am feeling a little bit sick. And
oh my goodness, you fucking hedge better.
The reason I bring that up is it's like the classic kicking a baby scenario. If Mike wins, then he beat a sick person, and if I win, that makes Mike a total piece of shit who couldn't even beat a sick person.
That is very true. Seems like a no-win situation for you, Mike. Do you agree?
Yeah, it looks like once again I'm fighting America. The new hegemony. That's one of those words I've only read. Should have tried that on off air.
That's when you find cash underneath a bush.
Yes.
Oh, man.
It's also my
Remember
back.
how when you were a kid, you just find a big box of cash in the woods?
And you were like, why isn't this porn?
Those days are over.
I
would do anything for this to just be porno.
I guess Benjamin Franklin's hair is kind of long. I'll try this.
Gentlemen, I have called you here today for one reason. Let's get them shirts off. No, that's not really the reason. I was just conning you. That was just my little grift because we are tonight.
Are we playing Skins on Skins tonight?
We're playing Skins on Skins. When you play B-Ball at Greg's house, everybody skins. We are doing 1973's The Sting. What, Mike, history, if any, do you have with 1973's The Sting?
I am in love with the eyes of the two leads. And have been
God.
since I saw, but what was the first? Probably 3 Days of Conroe. No, even before that, Winter Soldier. That's how long I've been a fan of Robert Redford. And my Newman's
I even like his old stuff.
Caesar dressing is when I fell in love with Paul Newman.
A great dressing, man. Really,
Paul
just
Newman with eyes the color of a blue Caesar dressing.
with delicious blue Caesar dressing. So, do you have history with the movie, or just the dudes in the movie?
Do you want to answer my original question, or
I'd heard of it, and that's about it. I love cons. I love the artists, and you know what? Also the yeomen, the people who aren't quite artists yet.
Mike,
I love grifts.
Before this week, if we had said main theme to The Sting, or like what's the music, would you have known that?
The ice cream song, of course.
Is the ice cream man in your neighborhood right now?
I did know that.
Goes so hard.
And it's surprising because there's so little. I'm not going to say there's none, but there's so little ice cream in this movie that I do think it's a little deceiving.
Yeah, he's not saying there's none. Do not email us to say technically there is some. You would expect there to be more when you hear that music.
And Greg, to answer your unasked so heretofore question, what is my relationship to Joplin's The Entertainer? I did once, when I was a rollerblader and a fat kid, chase down a ice cream man playing that song, and he for so many blocks, and he finally stopped. And he didn't say it with his words, but I felt his eyes were like, well, buddy, you needed it.
Mike, I will one up that story of The Entertainer with when we got our first home computer in my childhood household. It came with like a wave player, and it could play a bunch of public domain songs. One of them was The Entertainer, and my mom was like, "Don't mess with the computer until you've read the instruction books, or I'm going to be upset with you." And I made it play The Entertainer, and then it froze for whatever reason, and it wouldn't stop playing it even after we turned the computer off. And then like for a couple minutes, it played it, and then we turned it finally did stop. And then we're like, okay, we think we got it out of its system. We turned the computer back on. The song instantly started.
So
we
this
had to have a tech person come in.
This is
So
the first
that's
10
one
minutes of a Blumhouse movie, right?
Yeah, that's one story about Greg's relationship with The Entertainer and with Poltergeist, the movie.
Ryan, what is your history with 1973's The Sting?
Well, I was 21 when Butch Cassidy came out and the Sundance Kid, so I had to choose. Everybody was choosing which side to be on at the time. Of course, we would go into dances, and one half of the dance would usually be about Butch Cassidy, the other half would be about the Sting, and we would stay separated the entire time. This is a movie that I think that it's one of those classics. I saw this movie before I saw this movie through reference or parody or the music or whatever.
Just the way it inspired the culture.
Yeah, I honestly can't tell you when. Like the first time I watched it, it was probably begrudging and later. Like I got
Arms folded.
I got
Fine, Mom. Fuck you. I'll watch your movie.
Because I just like seen so many other movies around this, and this is the one that garnered all the awards and the box office. Blah blah blah. Sorry, I know I ended that sentence like I had more to say. I absolutely did not.
I'd fully looked away from everything because I was like, well, he's got a monologue.
There was a moment where none of us were talking or looking at our computers.
Right.
Greg and Mike started a jigsaw puzzle right when I ended the sentence like that, but I had nothing else.
That is going to make good radio. Well, I don't know what either of these gentlemen think about this movie, and so I can't do anything right now except for take what one panelist has called the quickest of breaks. And when we come back, we're diving right in to The Sting. The Sting is one of the more successful movies we have covered on this show. It won 7 of the 10 Oscars it was nominated for. Sorry, Robbie Reds. It was a big critical and financial success, and it had such a cultural impact that it even revitalized ragtime for a while. Following a ragtag group of grifters who were trying to take it to a violent, read Irish gangster, the movie treats us to Depression-era hijinks set against the desolation of Depression-era America. The film is directed by George Roy Hill and stars Redford and Newman, all three of whom were working together again after the recent success of 1969's Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. And just like that Western, this movie is in the Dad Flick Hall of Fame, and will get any group of dads talking for at least 20 minutes. However, despite its success, or maybe because of it, The Sting is not often mentioned as one of the 70s greats. Is it fair to say that The Sting is a featherweight compared to the Coppola, Altman, and Scorsese pictures of the decade? Mike?
Let's get this out of the way. I loved this movie. This is so up Mike's butt. I love Grifted. There's so many things I love would not exist without The Sting.
Grifting movies, you were going to say? I swear to God, you said it sounded like
he finished that sentence. He finished that.
You love grifting?
And I would not know how to do the Downtown Wriggle, The Wire, of course,
the
where
Super
you
Bowl
trick somebody
Shuffle.
into watching all of The Wire, the Super Bowl Shuffle, without The Sting. I do think it begat so many of the things I later loved. Playing piano very poorly. But it does feel less meaty than... This is one of those, like, oh, movies can be anything. Even, like, it just turn your brain off for a couple hours. I loved this movie.
Turn your, like, okay, yeah.
I'm just going to have to keep saying that.
Your tone is perfect because I love this movie. But turn your brain off, Ryan. Do you agree with the idea, turn your brain off to watch this movie?
Well, yeah, except that you're going to be even more confused than I think the movie wants you to be, which is slightly confused, like more confused than any other movie. I think that the problem here is that the 70s, especially this time that we're about to dive into, has this reputation of changing film forever.
Mm-hmm.
And the Sting,
New Hollywood, Ryan.
The Sting is like, let's make film great again. And there's something weird about that, Like there's something like you guys want to go back to a time. And the other thing too is that the Sting is surrounded by Godfather and Godfather Part 2, which is
literally right,
yeah.
right, which are absolutely throwbacks to early filmmaking, the studio system. And yet have so much more. I don't know, so much more to say about the times that they were made, and more influence on the film culture after that. And so The Sting is like there, just floating.
It is weird that the writer of this, I've heard about his other movies, I feel like more. He'd go on to do Major League and Major League 2 and Sleepless in Seattle. And I think both Major League and Sleepless in Seattle are talked about so much more. Maybe I hang out with trash people, but
You hang out with people that talk about Major League. I don't think that's like something that just like goes on in the general population.
is that
to be
not?
honest.
No, is that done? But
I
like,
would say that your particular group of friends quotes Major League more than your average
The
group.
average-
It's
Okay.
it's our generation's Caddyshack, and nobody else thinks it's funny. We just say lines from it.
Well, when we were kids, we wanted baseball movies. And like there are good baseball movies and some from that era, like or from earlier, like Bull Durham and stuff. But like honestly, if you start listing good baseball movies, you run out quick.
Mm-hmm.
Like so you kind of have to just, if you want a baseball movie, it might have to be Angels in the Outfield.
Uh-huh.
It might have to be Rookie of the Year.
Little Big League.
You know? Yeah,
Or
it might just be
The Sandlot.
biggest garbage.
the Sandy Lot.
And I think that
Whoa, Sandlot's a whoa.
Sandlot's
Time out.
Sandlot is average at best. I think that Greg and I might be slightly too old for
Mark.
those movies. Sometimes scoring
Silent
is
scoring,
not so silent.
Drop Pad just came out of its coma.
But yeah, David S. Ward, I do think, gave us the greatest top 3 baseball movie of all time.
Sleepless
Mike,
in Seattle.
continue.
The Sting.
Number one. But I think so. It's like what, and not I like Sleepless in Seattle. I do think You've Got Mail's better. But he is not interested in weighty, meaty.
Did
stuff.
you pause
He
there
wants-
for us to react? Like,
Or like,
Coming
yeah,
at
like
you.
almost like he was gonna let Greg either score for me or for
Yeah.
Ryan. It's a gentleman's pause.
And I was also looking at his entire filmography, including The
Oeuvre.
Sting 2, which is trash. And I just think maybe if the other 3 had kept him out of it, if they wrote it together or something. But I don't know, because I like The Sting so much. But it's like he's so interested in like wanting to, how do you make that perfect blockbuster movie that'll please everybody? And to get that, you're not going to get anything thoughtful.
Yeah,
Well-
like let me bring up a for instance about what this movie does and doesn't do. Okay, so this movie does provide us with like basically nonstop fun scenes.
hijinks.
Yeah, hijinks, man, just hijinks up and down, right? And then it does reference a couple of times to being set in the Depression,
Right.
But like, does it have anything to say about the Depression or about America or about the economy? Really, like, does this have some message in there that I'm not catching?
I think that slightly. I think that barely. I was looking at the list of movies that we've decided to cover, and there's this love of con artists and grifters and that type in all generations of Hollywood, right? So we can't just pin that on 1973.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard because you want to say some things about movies in the late 60s and the early 70s, and you end up restricting it a little bit too much sometimes when you try to. But I do agree, and we're going to talk about in the next in a couple segments. We're going to talk about like the con men
Right.
heritage of this movie. But there does seem something distinct about this time about con men.
And I mean, we're going to do the ultimate one in a couple weeks, which is Robin Hood. So
Oh hell yeah! Oh hell yeah! He convinced a whole nation that it was cool that he was not wearing pants.
But I think that so
Pervert.
much of this right now, if I had to guess, and I don't know, like this is clearly not why it won the Oscar, right? It won the Oscar because movies got confusing to Oscar voters because they were just different and arty, and so they were like, let's give it to The Sting because we know what that is. But
Yes.
I think that it definitely it's possible that it hit a chord with the audience because the audience is like, we're not angels necessarily, right? But we know
which the whole nation is going through, right?
we know
Yeah.
definitely who the devil is, right? And so
Yeah.
we can see that although
the Irish.
we don't have perfect ethics and morals, we know that there are certain lines that can be broken and certain lines that cannot be. And I do think that Robert Shaw in this movie is very, very like broad brush painted as the villain in a world of villains.
Even more than a gangster, his like downfall is that he's a banker, and I think that's what makes it important that it's set during the Great Depression. Is that this motherfucker has money, is in control of the machine that keeps people from money. Like,
I mean, it's kind of true because when you're running numbers, right, or even drugs, you're preying on people, but
Right.
in a way, people are choosing to give you their money. When you're a banker, you're just taking
A
their
way that
money.
people kind of like.
Yeah, you're just saying, I have X percentage of the money. I want a higher percentage. I'll become a banker, and I will be able to take from everybody else. You know, there's when you make more money, it's not like from a machine that just created money. You're taking that money from other people who probably needed it more.
and I think it's shown how out of touch he is with the common man. That, and maybe this is too far out on the limb for the Sting, but that he doesn't even recognize Hooker, who he has put a hit out on, as the same guy who's now hanging out with him all of the time, because he's so white glove, so taken care of, so not affected by the depression that's hitting everybody else.
There's something I love about him though, where he's like, he's gloves off, and he's like he's in the penthouse, right? Like he's eating his meals by himself, which I think for some reason is
In that fucking like smoking jacket or like that like super fancy robe.
with his white gloves on. They're all delivered to his room. But when the Sting comes to Sting and he's getting those horse calls, he's like, "Oh, I'll be there. I will be there waiting by the phone. That's my job. I'm the head of the mob, but I still want to be there answering that phone."
Yeah, because he knows that he has to handle that part of it himself. The other thing that like makes an impression on us in particular for how we judge movies for this show, because at least I'm with Mike and Ryan. I don't know if you feel the same way, that this is like a popcorn, really enjoyable, excellent movie, a fun time. But on top of, does it say anything? My other question about it is, are there areas that are like open for interpretation? A lot of times the movies that we really get into are like, there's something that's not quite explained, or you have to bring your own understanding to it. I feel like this movie pretty much is like, okay, and then this happened, and then this happened, and this is why this happened.
And
you may be confused in the middle, but by the end, it's been completely cleared up for you, right?
And for any, like, what is it, like a clockwork plot, right? Like whether it's a mystery or a thriller or a caper, it gets so plot heavy, it leaves very little room, even though it's trying to be like, what happened? It doesn't mean like, so you can think about it philosophically with your pals on your podcast. It means like, no, literally, who the fuck is that person? What happened? I thought they were somebody else.
I think that's a lot of it too. I think they because it's 1973 and because we have a show to do, we have like our theme binoculars out, right? And we're trying to contextualize as hard as we can. But I honestly can see like the point of this movie, both for audiences and breaking it down, is can we make the ultimate hangout movie? Because there is a lot of like Linklater. This is just friends hanging out, and also at the same time have more plot than any other movie in the history of film. Can we do both of those things at the same time? And
This movie is kind of like talking to a nephew. It's like, and then, and then, and then, and then.
I think
Okay, chill out. Go stand over there.
the fact that you are riveted throughout this movie, even if you've seen it before, even if you notice all of its flaws that we're going to talk about, throughout this show, the fact that you're still like, yeah, but man, the Sting, right? I think that's not part of its brilliance; its entire brilliance.
There's something I say about movies a lot that sends both of you into an instant fury, including this little prelude that I do every time I say this.
So ready to
But
hit.
if you said right now you're in mixed company and you had to grab a movie to throw on, like, this is going to please across demographics in a way that like whatever movie wins this year is probably not going to.
Right.
You couldn't in the middle of a family event throw on The Exorcist, like, and so
You don't know my family.
And so I just think that like the fact that it is so appealing and so broadly appealing speaks to its general success, and then also maybe the thing that's going to hamstring it a little bit in our particular
Unfortunately, like, and let me speak for Mike. We're both fucking infuriated. I cannot believe that you brought that up again. But if in order to do that thing, it's so impressive, and yet, automatically means that you're at the bottom, because not only are we, picking the best of the best from any year, but this is 1973 when movies were supposedly changing so much, and to go out and say we want to make a movie that everybody likes, everybody's stupid, and that means that you're not making crazy decisions, and you're not inventing. You're not
Right.
inventing. You're only showing us what the past has decided was good. I mean, like this movie cares nothing about when things happened. You know, ragtime is not the kind of music that these guys would have been listening to. That's
Yeah,
20
that was
years
like
before it.
1800s even, right? Like,
And so what they're doing is they're just saying, no, we just want to evoke the past, just the past in general, and
that-
that's
and
what
may-
people like.
maybe other movies were doing that. Sorry, Ryan, I got very excited, but like it does feel like that pastiche, at least the movies we've covered and we've done how
Pastiche.
many years now, is super interesting to be like, it doesn't fucking matter. This is the heyday of you think this is what people think of when they think of American. Gosh darn it, they're bad, but they're doing it for the little guy and picking up their bootstraps. And look, even in the 30s, they're friends with a black guy. They don't care. They're so much better than that stupid Mick.
Yeah, this movie has a hardcore "our heroes not racist" scene. Like, just so you know, starting things off, our heroes not racist.
Robert Redford is late for the big sting at the end, so he jumps on a brontosaurus and rides it to the sting. Like, it doesn't matter. Time doesn't matter.
It's a living.
Some movies are about life, and those are the movies that I think really get under our skin. But I've come to realize a lot of movies are just about movies. They're not based on things that would happen in real life. They're based on things in other movies, other stories, other radio shows that people have heard. And it's basically like this type of movie is almost like D&D. Like, you don't expect what the realistic thing to happen. You expect the entertaining thing
Right.
to happen.
Or Star Wars or Tarantino.
Yes.
Now we're just watching this auteur play with his toys in front of us.
And it's a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of reality, but instead of getting worse every time, it gets just a little cooler
But what
every time.
what we all
Ocean's
want,
11.
though, is a movie that stars the fourth Michael Keaton from the movie Multiplicity, so we can see that copy of a copy of a copy.
Holy cow. That's exactly the kind of comment that we just need to shut down the show for so we can take the quickest of breaks and the deepest of thinks about the seminal movie, Multiplicity. We'll be right back. Oh, you know what that sweet, sweet music means. It is time to go on a shopping spree.
Mike, do you
Very
love how our
exciting.
host this season is Andrew Dice Clay?
Oh,
Hey.
hickory dickory dock.
You know what the truth is? You gotta inject a little excitement any way you can, even if it sounds dumb, Ryan. And so, I don't care a bit. Let's move on. What we are gonna do is we are going to run through the movie that is The Sting, and we have pre-stickied up our hands, and we are just gonna drag them across whatever we want, and we are gonna use our grubby little mitts to get our favorite things from this movie.
Do you want to do this Connor Roy style, where he hands us little stickers and we can walk around the movie and put little
Yes.
stickers on what we want?
Yes, that's a really good way to do it because this is a non-visual medium. The order is going to be Mike, Ryan, Greg, and then we're going to go a serpentine, baby, just slithering all through this movie. But we will have hands, and they will be sticky. You can grab people, places, things, ideas, as long as you can make a case for it, and you can hoist it on your shoulders. You can drag it out of this movie. Mike, let's start with you. What would you like?
And this is a gamble because I don't know if it's going after your heart or going after your heart in a bad way. I would like to take the 1935 Pierce Arrow Model 845 Club Sedan.
Fuck off. No, I don't think that was in this movie, actually. You're wrong.
It is such a sleek. This man back when cars were cars and men were men. Am I right?
Oh, my God.
This is what a car should look like. It's so fucking hot. Where the spare tire is somehow on the passenger door, but like
Yes.
it looks cool.
It looks so cool. It's like in its little house.
Yeah.
And this is dangerous.
It's got
but
drapes.
can't you run up to that spare tire and turn it, and then that will also steer the car?
yes.
That's so
Course.
That was
dangerous.
a
But people
design
know they're
flaw.
not supposed to do that. The back has like drapes. If there's one downside to this car, it reminds me of like the Maybach in that you have to have a driver. Like to experience this car truly, or the Maybach truly, you have to be in the back and someone has to be driving you. And I could not imagine that experience, like actually having a driver. But if you could afford it,
Mike, I don't want to just give you this victory, but can you make one addition when you draft this? Can you replace the back seat and the back windshield with TV screens that display like a road going very fast as you're driving?
nice.
Yes. Yes, I can.
Thank you.
All right, so Mike
Thank you.
has jumped in and grabbed the car. Great strategy because that would have been one of my picks. Also, I mean, would have been one of my picks. I gotta at least consider awarding it. Ryan,
Yes.
is there a vehicle you would like to drive away in?
No, I'm gonna pick something that's not a vehicle and piss and shit all over Mike's vehicle in the process. Everyone knows that I am trying to get you guys to help me spend pop filter money on additions to my home, where I'm going to recreate the Cheers bar, and then on top of that, a Blockbuster Video where I store all of my physical media. We're adding a third to that because right now I'm drafting a fake betting parlor just to be right there. I don't want real-time horse information coming in. I just
No.
want Ray Walston,
Oh,
the,
they shot another one.
the teacher from Fast Times, to be sitting in a booth reading fake-ass horse information.
He was so grumpy, but in the end, he taught Spicoli everything he needed to know. Man, Fast Times is such a beautiful movie. I feel like we're the only ones who ever talk about that.
We're at the point now, by the way, watching this movie for some reason, I was like, Paul Newman, The Verdict, Robert Redford, 3 Days of the Condor, Ray Walston, Fast Times. We're at the point where, like, we can't even get our first Ray Walston movie in it anymore.
No way, not anymore.
Bobby Shaw
boys.
Jaws, also his fighting name.
Robert Shaw Jaws.
right.
So yeah, I just I feel like all the liquor was real, and so I don't care about the rest.
Wow.
care.
I hate that that's not the first time I've heard you say that in life. It's really
All right, I am gonna go with this movie features a carousel,
Yeah.
and I think I'm gonna grab that carousel for the exclusive reason that I saw a tweet once that referred to a carousel as a horse tornado, and I don't want to exaggerate. There's no way you think about a carousel tweet every day of your life. It's just not possible. A lot of the times you're just in despair, but I think about this a lot, at least, especially whenever I see a carousel. So I would like one horse tornado. Also, apparently, sex workers like it, and I always want to make my environment the most conducive to making sex workers comfortable as I possibly can. So if
I
kids try to
also-
come around, I'm obviously going to shoot
yeah,
them.
kids get out of here. I also hate that that's not the first time I've heard you say that sentence.
There's a part in this movie where Elaine Brennan comes in,
Elaine
and
Bennis.
Paul Newman is like, or she says to Paul Newman, "Hey, the sex workers are bored. Mind if I turn on the merry-go-round?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "No, do it." It's like, you guys are in your mid-30s. Like,
I remember being like, "Wait, does that mean that they want to go on the carousel?" And then the very next shot is all of them on the
Yeah.
carousel drinking.
Fucking loving it.
yeah,
They're
having
also
a great
drinking,
time.
Ryan. Consider that. Like,
That's true.
I do feel like carousel is something that when you are not on the carousel and you look at it, you're like, that's dumb. And then when you're on the carousel and the music starts playing and the lights are going and you're going in a circle, you're like, well, I don't want to harden my heart to this experience. This is pretty cool.
Mike,
Ken-
let's get some information here. Now, we know
Yes.
Greg is a carousel person. I'm a merry-go-round person. Where are you?
Too tall. Way too tall for Greg.
What's way too tall for Greg?
The merry-go-round.
No, you're thinking of Ferris wheel.
Ferris wheel, way too tall for Greg.
Merry-go-round and carousel, I
Are
feel like
just
are
the same
synonymous.
thing.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
I am a merry-go-round guy, unless we're talking about Blink-182's seminal hit, Carousel, which I
Cheshire
do think
Cat.
you should play instead of any sort of Joplin. You should have Carousel on repeat.
I do think we should transition to calling it a horse tornado, though.
Yes.
Regardless of what we call it.
I
From
think-
now on.
Wasn't that a burrito that Ron Swanson ate once?
Unfortunately, I can't give the credit to the horse tornado tweeter because this is like one of the most stolen tweets I've ever seen. This is like a shrimp fried this rice tweet.
Uh-huh.
Like, just if you search this, it's like 700 people have said it.
It's probably
So
I don't
sorry.
know, Megan Amram.
All right. Next, I am going to go for something that is a impossibility, and that intrigues me. Something that is, much like this movie, a cool idea, but if you think about it for like even a little bit, like just a little bit, you're like, oh no, that's a dumb idea. And that is the tension inherent in this movie. And I'm going to go with the silenced revolver.
Damn it.
Can you
Yeah.
put a silencer on a revolver? Sure, if you want to. That's not where a revolver makes noise, though, so it's not really going to do anything for you. There's like a gap in between the cylinder and the barrel that's still going to make the noise, but does it look cool? Yes.
Greg,
Silencers are inherently cool.
I hate to give you the win here, but can I make an addition for when you draft this?
Sure. Lay it on me.
Everything comes with that little screw. So dog barking, screw in the silencer. You
Yeah.
can barely hear the dog barking. Neighbors
Oh,
TV,
okay.
Neighbor's TV is too loud. Walk over. Screw that. Don't turn the volume down. Just screw the silencer into their TV. Now you can't hear their TV.
Okay, I thought you were saying do it in front of these creatures so they would get scared of you
No,
and
no.
stop making
It-
whatever noise.
You can just screw it into whatever you want.
Is there anything more American than advising someone else just to brandish a pistol
Just
next to
pull out
anybody
that
that they don't
gun.
like? Well, for that first round, I'm gonna go. You know what, Mike? God, I'm so audacious, and I hate you for it, but that car is so sexy, and so I think I'm gonna have to give it to you in the first round. But Ryan, I need your pick for the second round.
I am going to go with a restaurant that makes 35-cent meatloaf. I love a restaurant like this, but they're now very expensive. You're paying like $19, $29, $30 for meatloaf. I want that same chalkboard where it's like a different, just old school meal every
Yeah.
night. Like something that involves brown gravy. Brown, it's going to be slobbed in brown
Wouldn't
gravy.
you love to have a blue plate special?
Yes.
That sounds so fucking good.
And there's
dude.
like a shitty salad and steamed vegetables and chunky mashed potatoes. You know that there's pie. Also, everyone back then just had coffee with their meal. I'm not a coffee with my meal guy, but I'll do it if I'm paying 35 cents for meatloaf.
If there's any sort of noir vibe at all, I'm having coffee with my meal.
Oh, yeah.
That's just how it is.
Because you
I
don't
can't
know the
help
next
it.
time you're going to catch a wink.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm hitting on that waitress, and I don't care how it turns out. Okay. If
I'm
in an
hoping she's a
old-timey
Black
movie-
Widow.
Oh, that's a strong one, Ryan.
Thank
I
you.
like that. Mike, Ryan has an entire restaurant. What do
Well-
you want to pick up?
The key to playing a con that you guys have clearly all forgotten is confidence. I would love to have confidence
That's
to
so
believe
sweet. I
that
love
any
that.
of my ideas could
That is
ever
so
work
sweet.
out.
Oh man, could you
Uh,
imagine these three dudes with just a little bit of confidence?
That-
There's nothing we couldn't mess up.
That would be, are you drafting for the whole table or is this just for you?
This, you know what?
I thought we
I'm a
split,
giver.
right?
I'll share it with the
You
table.
can touch the revolver if you want. Oh man, revolver plus confidence equals fucking results. You guys,
Try that
That's
in a
what
small
made this
town.
country. Okay, Mike, I am giving you a point for saying that in a small town, but you're on thin ice, bud. I don't think you want to really continue down that. Shit, he did it again, Ryan. I'm sorry.
That's
I thought
it's
with
fine.
I thought with my revolver, it's an impossibility. I thought for sure it's
Look.
Hollywood magic.
In real life, it's much more likely that I will own a restaurant than Mike will ever get confidence. So give him the point now.
That's so messed up. Sidebar, Mike, you have so many reasons to be confident. You're amazing, and I love you.
you.
But I am gonna need that third round pick, confidence, man.
Look, did one for Greg, did one for Ryan. Let's say I got to do one for me. I am truly in love with the idea of
Trash.
fancy luxury. I love trash. Train travel. I fucking love luxury train
You
travel.
want to buy a train right now. You want to draft a train.
I want. It doesn't even need to be the full train, Ryan. It could be
Yeah.
just a fancy train car that looks nicer than any house I've ever lived in.
Do your
So
diner
spacious.
car, have you figured out who's making your food? Because I own a restaurant, and I can get 45-cent meatloaf onto that train if you
I could
hire
I
me.
could probably get that restaurant from him with my revolver, Mike, if you want it.
Bust that meatloaf down to 35 cents.
So wait, so Greg drafted a revolver and now owns all of our stuff. Fucking
Yeah.
America.
I've definitely gone gun crazy right away. I'm just brandishing it, swinging it around. I took the silencer off it right away because I was like, no, I want this to be loud.
people need to know.
So, Mike, what narrow it down for me because you said I don't necessarily want the whole train. What specifically do you want?
Then I guess I'll take the cart because this is a whole car, right? One room is
Yeah.
a gaming hall.
Yeah.
One room is a nice wood paneled place with booze and smoke, and you get to hang out with your buds or people
And it's
you
like
hate.
as wide across as a train. So how is it on a train if it's as big as a train
Right.
car? It's
Snowpiercer taught us never ask that question. And then the room behind it,
Snowpiercer would have two characters playing racquetball, just being like, "This train is crazy, right?"
and one bungee jumping in the distance behind them.
man, sucks that this is the apocalypse. Anyways, your point.
And then the room behind it is like a great lavish cream, not cream of wheat. What's the cream? I guess just cream colored, bed spread and walls. and-
Yeah.
A bedspread made of cream of wheat.
a cream of wheat bed spread.
Go
please.
have your little meeting there. All right, very good. So a fancy train car for Mike. I like that. Monty Burns style personal train car. Ryan,
Yeah.
it is to you. What is your final pick?
One of my favorite parts of the movie, I don't know why, just remember this from being a kid, is Kid Twist.
Kid Twist.
Just
Good
who's
name.
like, we'll get to him in a second. Like, one of the greatest characters of all time. Is like, all right, you're hired. Pick up your tweed suit over there. And the guy picks up his suitcase. He's like, no, I got it all right here, motherfucker. In this suitcase is all of the makeup, fake hair,
Curly.
costumes. I want that suitcase. He's just like, no. Goes in the corner and comes out like a slightly taller leprechaun, and that's how they
He
run
like
the
puts
con.
on a mustache and then goes like, "Oi, I'm an Englishman, I am."
So I want that suitcase because in my head it's cartoon style. Reach
you, like,
in
reach
and
in there
endlessly.
It's a close cousin to Mary Poppins bag.
I love
for
it.
Sure.
I love it. All right, and then I have the final pick, and I think what I'm gonna go with is I just really like one of them old timey telephones. That is, it's such a good look. You get to have the piece that the earpiece, the part that you scream into. Reminds me of being at Disneyland. Why not old timey telephone for the Gregster?
I've got one more thing, Greg, before you announce the winner.
Yes.
I had a little bit of money left over from the shopping spree, and so
Okay.
I'm gonna get each of us a classic old timey sex worker costume that always has that silk robe. So when we go to Greg's house and ride the carousel, we can wear those flowy. They're not sexy at all. Just lots of flowy silk.
Yeah. Well, they would slip off quickly. That's a type of sexy. All right. So the last round is Mike with your train car, Ryan with your magical bag, and me with my old timey phone. And I'm gonna give this one to Ryan. I like your magical. I like that the bag of disguises. There's just something in the absolute fantasy world that this movie exists. There's just something so special about this bag of disguises where you could like become anyone, and like the sort of logic of the movie is like, even if you can tell that this guy doesn't look that different, the other characters don't recognize him. So just
Yeah.
go with it, okay?
He's
And I
also trying to fool somebody who's never met him before.
He'd never expect an English person.
But like also the whole idea of like go over there and get your suit. No, I'm gonna go over there. Like
Yeah.
off camera. Everyone's always pointing off camera.
Right.
Yeah, no way. I got my own deal. Here. Well, Mike, you ended up with a car, confidence as an attribute, and a train car. Ryan, you ended up with it just says parlor. What was that again?
The fake betting parlor.
Oh yes, and then you also ended up with something else, and then the curly bag. Oh, the restaurant. You ended up with the restaurant. So wow, you have two locations. You're a landlord. Fuck you. And then I ended up with a horse tornado, a silenced revolver, and then an old timey phone. So overall, Mike, I think you're gonna get the overall award. for your-
Greg is going to be a cowboy, waving his gun around as he slowly goes in a circle on his horse.
Bang, 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 bang. When we come back, we are going to talk about the cons. And we're also going to talk about a little thing we call Hollywood. We see auditions, writing, set design, location scouting, acting. Is this thing about how fucking dumb Hollywood thinks the audience is, Ryan?
Is it about how dumb? I think that it is in love with Hollywood's relationship to the
Hollywood.
audience. I think that they liken, but in very complimentary ways, that every Hollywood movie is a con of sorts, right? And you
Yes.
have to trick your audience into believing certain things that aren't true, even though you know it's a facade. We see them setting up a set of a betting parlor on a set. We know that this
Right.
is like in a backlot of a studio, and they're
Oh, we're in
setting
the hyper real, folks.
yeah, and they're setting up another set on top of that. And it made me sort of realize that I watched a movie, a Powell Pressburger movie called The Red Shoes recently. And The Red Shoes is about a ballerina and her director and the music writer, and they're putting on this big show called The Red Shoes. And you see the entire show that they put on, basically, in the movie. And what it does is it sort of, even though the outside of the show, the story that you're watching is so stylized and old school and movie-ish, you start to believe that more because you saw the art that they were making. And so when it cuts back to them as people, they're not characters anymore. Those are the people that put on the show that you watched. And there's a lot of that here of like, we are watching, this is Waiting for Guffman, you know, we're watching our gang put on a play. Hamlet,
Fuck,
if you
that's
will.
good.
Did they put a play in Hamlet?
Did they put a
Hamlet,
play in Hamlet these
The
days?
place that
You can put a
you know
play
what
in
they
anything.
did? These libs went in there and they put a play right in the middle of Hamlet, and it's
God.
kind of like awkwardly very similar to what happens in the rest of Hamlet.
I bet
And
that
there's
play
one
is
part
so
where they
woke.
act without talking. Yikes. So yeah, this is clearly not just like about cons, right? This is about Hollywood itself.
It feels like part of the impetus is them being like, we love the work that we do, but so many people are, it's not just Redfords and Newmans, right? There's so many unsung heroes, the set dressers, the
Kids
the
Twist.
people who run your kids twist, and that it feels like, no, we're gonna have to, people aren't ready to watch a movie about a movie yet. But gosh damn it, are we going to highlight all the work that goes into putting on a movie here for
and I
the
mean,
audience?
Technically, that's not true, right? I mean, movies about
Movies
movies
been about movies since fucking day one.
since day one, literally day one. But Kid Twist, I think, is a crazy example because a producer has never been the star or even like as like heralded as Kid Twist in this movie. He's the fucking producer. He gets shit done. He solves problems. He finds the money. He comes in with the money. He uses that money. Like I do
Yeah.
think that Kid Twist does not. This is based on nothing except for the way that he acts. Maybe he's broke as fuck, but the way that he acts and dresses makes me think that he's got billions in the bank.
Yes.
And this is for fun.
Just for love of the game.
Yeah.
I got the feeling that he's a little queer-coded. There's something about how fastidious he is about his physical appearance and gloves. I've heard that in classic Hollywood, like the kind of Hollywood that this movie harkens back to, that gloves were often like a signifier to sort of like a subtle way of being like, this character's gay, just so you know, if you do know.
So that means when you say the gloves are off, that means it's fucking time.
It's time.
That's what I mean.
It's time to bang. Is this possibly this connection between the cons and how they do it in a very like Hollywood style? Is that maybe, besides how entertaining this movie, potentially a reason why this won Best Picture in the year?
Yeah.
100%.
Came out?
And the thing that Mike was saying was that this is competency porn, but you don't want to just say, look how competent filmmakers are.
Right.
Yes.
So then you guise it with, look how competent these con men are putting on this show for your entertainment, huh? Do you want to give us awards?
And then there's like two avenues of who the audience could be, right? The audience of the con is either the audience of the movie, because we're watching it, or I think Shaw can be two roles here. He's either the audience, and the audience are howdy do dats and they're fucking dumb and everything's a big hoax to fool them out of money, or Hollywood is filled with artists and people who want to create, and Hollywood is bankrolled by fucking stingy VC bros.
Yeah,
and
he's
so
a
it's
studio
saying,
head.
we have to trick the fucking studio heads to squeeze everything we can so we can take the money and run it and make the art that you'll love.
Does this have anything to do with today's news?
And right now we are on strike.
Well, Ryan, you always nope, I lost it. I totally lost my train of thought. When we talk about the cons, when we talk about the stings, which sting like affected you the most? Which really got to you?
Oh, man. I mean,
And that could be like an emotional thing, or it can just be a you were actually tricked by.
I think that the movie is a little anticlimactic for a couple of reasons. One, I had seen it before, so I was like, guys, I already know all this. Like,
Yeah,
what?
you're not
doing
conning
it
me.
Rewritten
again?
a different one.
But there's at the very end, Redford and Newman are a little too ha ha ha. Look what we did for my taste. I think that the con that the movie never comes back from is the drunk Newman playing
Yeah.
poker with Shaw, and just us knowing, because we're delivered all the information that Shaw is cheating for sure.
Right.
And we know that Hooker is good at cards, but is he? Because there's a point where he's trying to show Redford how good at cards he is, and he messes up. And I think the most brilliant moment of acting in the movie where he messes up and just keeps eye contact with Redford and doesn't break, and like
Yeah.
he's trying to remain
Maybe I
confident and
meant to
manly.
do that.
Are you buying it?
But those baby blues sort of reveal like, oh fuck, I'm old. And just the acting of drunk, you know, like I'm gonna wear gin as cologne, and that's
Yeah.
going to trick
Swish it
people.
in my mouth.
That's so much Newman, you know.
Yeah.
Mike, what is it for you? What is the one that really got to you?
I mean, yeah, that's a great setup. The one that got to me, I'll say the one that got to me that I was like, is there's a moment where you see Redford towards the end putting stuff in his mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're like, huh? What's going on here? And then so by the end when there's a fake shootout and then you find out Poke, the FBI agent, was fake. And so it's like, who was real and who gives a shit? And that started
And is
to
this
lose it
whole
for
thing
me.
maybe too big and complicated? Like, is it clever?
$1 million?
If you have like 150 people working on your con,
Right.
is it still clever?
Here's
Like,
your
when you design a
$7.50.
set?
Here's your $7.50.
And I know this is not a way to enjoy a movie like this, and we've like been at pains to say like how this is not a way to enjoy a movie like this. But they have the machine, the Western Union machine, that tells them the results of the race ahead of time. It feels like that thing would be so valuable that
Right.
you can't just have that as an element of the con, right?
No.
That's like the most valuable thing in the world.
This goes back though to the love of filmmaking, because every movie that's ever been made could be told far simpler, and yet what we're gonna do is we're gonna throw a ton of money into it and just be as bombastic as possible. Honestly, the movie that I thought of the most in the last 20 minutes of this movie was Adaptation, and Adaptation's last
Yes.
20 minutes. I don't know if you guys remember that movie, but that won movie of the year for 2002.
Oh, good for it.
And there's a transition at some point towards the end where we're a little less Charlie and we're a little more Donald.
Yes.
And we have alligator murders and people flying out of cars. And that's not okay. Let me see if I can break this down. That's not just the filmmakers doing this to this movie so their audiences are more entertained, but that's also the plan to get Shaw out of the room.
Right.
Is he will be so flustered by seeing Butch and
Yeah.
Sundance shoot each other, because throw it all the fuck in now, right? Like, we're at the end of the movie. Throw it. He's going to be looking around like FBI's there, 2 dead bodies. I need to run out of here. I'm gonna barely think about my money, and it's all of like the greatness and overblownness and convolutedness but adorableness of movies is all cascading right here in the last 5 minutes, including fucking Redford and Newman just leaving. Just
Right.
saying, let's go on to our next movie, and then Irish shot into their butts, and we're out. The Sting, bitch.
Do you feel like it reminded me a lot of Ocean's 11, where like we want to tell this dope story about these charming con men and grifters, but we have to make it so impossible for any viewer to recreate this con, so no lawmen can come after us for showing them how to do it. So
So
we put in so many layers and twists and turns. That
Is
you
this Herbie
can't
theory?
physically do it. Herbie theory?
Yeah.
Herbie fully
Describe
loaded?
Herbie theory. The car that's alive.
No, the robot that they replaced the Human Torch with, so kids would not light themselves on fire
Yes.
wanting to be the Human Torch.
Exactly. It's Herbie theory. I like that now that we know what it is.
I've never thought about that, but and maybe the Sting I think the Sting created this. If it didn't, then it's like Star Wars in that we say that it created it, even though
Right.
it harkens back to the past. Of like, no, the convolution of the heist is fun. Make it
Yeah.
as crazy as possible. And Ocean's 11 rolled with that.
Oh yeah.
Go, Mike.
It just brings it level, and then there's stuff that's not connected to the main heist. At least Poke and the fake FBI are, and so now they're hoodwinking Shaw and the crooked cop. But the diner waitress, who is also an assassin, and she's been known all about, and then there's been a secret killer bodyguard protecting Redford. Like, that's when I'm like, guys, I don't know.
Yeah. See, I think that that's the movie being like, no, we are trying to be absurd like this. It's almost like the movie is saying, yeah, if you think about any of this for more than 2 seconds, because there's not a single con in this movie that if you think about for more than 2 seconds, you're like, oh wait, that wouldn't work because, or this is like very flimsy. But that seems to be kind of the point, because I do think at this time America is like, give us the dream. We don't want the reality. The reality is so much more bitter than we ever thought it could be. And so we are actively saying, lie to us, con us, grift us. Just don't make us think about the real world in any capacity at all.
And do the bad stuff that's fun. Not the bad stuff that's
Yeah.
bad, just do the bad stuff that's fun. I mean, if you look at Newman and Redford, let's say they're 4 years apart? And Newman is this grizzled,
Yeah, dude.
out of the game veteran, and Redford's like this young 16-year-old pup fresh on the scene. It was just like, which archetype do you guys want? just pick, like, this is how these movies work. Pick one of these two, and then we're just gonna roll. You know,
They were supposed to be dramatically different ages in the script, but then they just like find actors to do it that have so much chemistry, and they're like, nah, fuck that.
what's
We'll just have
the?
him stoop.
Is it Dana Carvey and somebody was supposed to? They were offered Bad Boys first. It was like Dana Carvey and Mike Myers were supposed to be in the movie Bad Boys, and they were like, "Okay, so you two don't want to do it. Let's give it to these other two actors. We'll change the script a little bit, but it's
As
just like
if.
find the people."
Is this the movie that started us getting con man movies all the time? If maybe it's the thing you were just talking about, Ryan, where we look at the most recent thing, or we look at one of them but not far enough in the past. Is this the origin of the con men movie?
I always think about a scene from Ocean's 11, but this is a scene that's like everywhere, which is like, all right, we're gonna need a barreler, a monkey fuck, a croissant, and a fat lady, right? And like that
Oh,
kind
we
of
doing the Cincinnati Squeezer?
right, that kind of talk that like there's this underground lingo that reminds me of Mice and Men, where people would like write secret things to like the transients that would go from farm to farm.
Like hobo code, thieves
Hobo
camps from
code, yeah,
D&D?
like the whole idea of con code and how like
Yes.
Gondorf could be this broken down merry-go-round, or I'm sorry, carousel or horse tornado employee, but also has the pull to just get an army and hundreds of thousands of dollars at his leisure. That I feel like all started here.
They're
So that-
having a cattle call open audition for con men to con the most dangerous man in the city.
Part
in the
of it is-
newspaper.
and it runs through it kind of fast, but I think it's trying to say Luther was so loved.
Right.
Luther's the Redford's partner who dies in the beginning of the movie. Luther was so
Like
loved.
his mentor, right?
Yeah.
Taught him the game.
And who was like partners with Gondor? What is the Lord of the Rings
Gondorf?
name? Gondorf. They were partners like years ago, where they knew each
Gondorf
other.
the Grey.
But the whole con world loves Luther so much. They're like, yeah, we'll all come out of retirement for this shit.
That's a good point.
I mean, there's multiple points where, like, even the very last line, like Redford's like, "Was it worth it?" and Gondorf is like, "It was fun, right?" Like they keep saying.
Yeah.
Gondorf says early on, "Revenge is for suckers." You know,
Right.
like that's not enough of a motivation. But fuck you, Newman. Like that's so much of it. Somebody crossed a line in your world, and you're going to fuck that person over. So
You know what?
call it
that's a-
revenge or avenge or whatever you want to, but.
That's a little bit of openness in the movie that where we are allowed to interpret, because I think that they all have a sort of spectrum of reasons for why they're doing what they're doing. And I think maybe wondering what exactly is each character's total reason for doing it. And that certainly answers the charge of like, this wouldn't be worth it. Yeah, they're not trying to really actually make that much money on this. They're all trying to screw over this
Right.
guy. And this is how you screw this one individual guy.
But also they're junkies, you know, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
they need their next fix. They're all going through that, you know. Like I think that's sort of why he's a merry-go-round worker instead of working on a roller coaster, is because that does the same thing. But it's really just I'm going to be excited about getting on this ride, never or always forgetting that I'm going to end up in the exact same
Holy
spot every
shit.
time.
You can't say something like that when I'm trying to bring the whole segment to a conclusion.
Because I mean, Redford says at the end of the movie, like, "No, I don't even need my share. I'm just going to blow it."
Right.
Yeah, you guys
Yeah.
you keep going on the same fucking ride over and over again.
But he is matured enough by the end of the movie to know that he's
Yeah,
a
at least-
junkie.
Yeah.
Where I don't think at the beginning of the movie he knew that.
He was surprised when he in the beginning of the movie when he lost all of his money at that table and nobody else was. Everybody was
Yeah.
like, "Oh,
Yeah.
hooker." You just every time.
Pop quiz, hot shots. What's my favorite segment on this show?
Trivia?
Next. It is trivia time. You've worked hard all show, and now you get to have trivia. The rules are, gentlemen, let me finish the question, because a lot of times they're kind of silly. Ring in with your own name, and then I will tell you whether you are right or wrong. If you are a smarty pants and you happen to know that my answer is wrong, too bad. It's my answer. I will kick you. Question the first. Why does the character Doyle Lonigan walk with a pronounced limp?
Ryan
Ryan?
Shaw got injured.
He tore every ligament in his knee. And like when you know that, it actually makes the movie a lot worse, because you're just like, oh god, this poor guy. Like he can hardly freaking move.
Was it a shark bite?
It was a shark bite. It was a shark bite. Some of these trivia questions are going to be very easy to get. Luther Coleman, Johnny Hooker's first mentor, is the father of what famous actor?
Ryan.
Ryan?
Ryan.
Ryan.
Simba.
Say no more, say no more. It is one James Earl Jones.
Really?
Yeah, dude. They got different
turns
voices.
out Robert Earl Jones is the father of Dave Earl Jones. James Earl Jones.
Actor Robert Shaw was featured in what 1975 movie of the year?
Mike.
Mike?
Jaws. Thank God.
Jaws. Yes, sir. Very good job, Mike. The
Thanks
5
for that,
points mentioned during the con logistics early on is heavily featured in what 2002 movie of the year?
Mike.
Ryan.
I heard Mike first.
Gangs of New York.
Boom. Also, it is a shopping center right near Ryan's house.
That's true. There's a
And-
Tilly's where
Just
my
as
gangs
dangerous.
fight.
Dude, yeah, dude, you do not want to mess with the people at the green tea there. As he researched old Hollywood gangster films of the 1930s for inspiration, director George Roy Hill noticed that most of them didn't use a lot of what in the scenes, leading to him to make the same artistic choice.
Ryan.
Ryan.
I want to say, because there's something that the movie's famous for, but it's actually not in it as much. I want to say music.
It's not the music, although that's a good thing. Ryan. I mean, Mike. Do you have an answer? Ryan again?
Ouch.
Ryan?
Lighting.
No, although the coloring was a part of that. Old-timey movies, according to George Roy Hill, did not use that many extras, which is why the streets of Chicago in this movie
Yeah.
are generally completely empty.
But,
That sounds...
Maybe it's because of how the old movies looked, and that's what like sets the seed. But it screams backlot. Like when
Yes.
you see
Yeah.
nobody out there, it's just oh, okay. So this is behind the clock tower from Back to the Future.
I think if we said to him, this movie doesn't seem like it's based on reality, it seems like it's based on fictive universes, he'd go, yeah, dude, I did a lot to make that clear. So, and I'm a little concerned that you're telling it to me like it's something you thought of.
Oh, did you put that together?
Yeah, thank you. There's like 18 different decisions I made to make that so clear. When Kid
Because
Twist
if it was real, if it was supposed to be a documentary, then it would have been sepia colored and everybody would have moved fast.
very good. You did interrupt me, but very good.
I'm sorry.
When Kid Twist is in the bar looking for recruits for the planned sting, he is told the bar is full of good people and he can have his pick, to which Kid Twist replies, they have to be the Quill. What does this mean in gangster slang?
Mike.
Mike?
They have to be sharp.
They have to
Like
be
a
sharp. They have to be
quill?
the real deal. They have to be the real deal or sharp. Good. Very good. The film is set in the 1930s, but despite this fact, it extensively uses what, which was actually popular 20 to 30 years earlier.
Ryan,
Ryan.
ragtime music.
Ragtime. Yeah, see, another way in which he indicated that he's not making a movie at all based on reality is he took music from 30 years earlier and scored the whole thing because he liked the jingle jangles.
It was that, but also if you saw the Sting when the Sting took place, there would be pianos in the movie theater that would play ragtime.
Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
Jingly jangly ragtime. And I mean, so many of the montages are clearly not just montages. They are meant to be silent film scenes. And like a
Right.
lot of the chases are meant to be like
Right.
silent film scenes. It's pretty clear.
When Redford gets his haircut, you think that's
Yeah.
a start of a montage, but it's not. It's one silent film, short film. It's not a montage. It's crazy.
I loved this movie when we started talking about it, and I expected to like it a little bit less as we talked about it. I think I'm liking it more. The more we talk about it, the more I'm like, yeah, these are decisions an artist made, not things you noticed. This movie made ragtime music popular again. Is that stupider than swingers making swing music popular again in the 90s?
Mike.
Ryan,
Mike?
No, that's exactly what I thought of. This brought on third wave ragtime, and I loved it.
What do you say, Ryan?
nothing is stupider than swing music coming back again in the late 90s.
Yeah, dude, that was so sad of us.
It was in the Gap ads. Come
I can't
on.
believe we did that.
Also, at that same time, we all were like, you know what else we should do in between swing sets? Smoke cigars. What a fucking crazy time.
Oh my god. The whole
money.
ethos of the cigar is, sure, this sucks for me, but it sucks way worse for everybody fucking around me. This is America. Choke, bitches.
Capitalism.
This movie was filmed on the backlot of Universal Studios, and the diner in which Hooker meets Lonigan is the same diner interior used in what other movie of the year movie?
Mike.
Ryan.
Ryan.
Oh, shit. Back to the Future?
Back to the Future. Well done.
Did that win Movie of the Year?
Oh,
Oh, no, we covered it. Not
we
a winner,
covered it,
but-
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
There was a lot of connections to other movie of the year movies that we've done. I thought that was kind of interesting. Magician John Scarn was brought in to double for the actors doing what?
Mike.
Ryan.
Mike.
The card tricks.
The card tricks. Right, very good.
The Cartery.
The cardery.
Cartery.
if
I love
you
a good
will.
pair of cottery pants.
According to producer Julia Phillips, Robert Redford was concerned that he wasn't acting in the film, but only doing a lot of what?
Ryan.
Ryan?
I don't know this, but I'm gonna say dancing. The first 15 minutes, he'll just like march around a corner and he'll just like do a little half step. And he over the course of the movie he gets more jaded and fucked up, but in the first 15 minutes he is a cartoon
He's
character.
feeling himself so much early on. Mike, that's not correct. Mike, do you have an answer?
Reacting?
No, he said all and what if you know this, you can see it's very clear in the movie. All he does in this movie is run. Like he spends more time just running.
Oh.
There's so many scenes where it's just like now he's running from the cop, and it's like okay.
I honestly filmed some of the TV screen that I was watching this on and sent it to Tom Cruise. Like, you could be better, bro.
Both Redford and Newman are known to drive and obsess over what perfect German automobile?
Ryan.
Ryan,
German?
German automobile.
Where's the Porsche from?
Incidentally, it happens to be from Germany.
Porsche.
What Porsche, Ryan?
911.
Never forget the Porsche 911.
Is that true?
Wait,
That
is
is-
all of that true?
All that's true, yeah. Man, Hollywood at this point, all the cool guys in Hollywood were completely obsessed with the Porsche
911.
911.
I've never fallen down the stairs and landed in a splits more than that answer.
What did I get in huge trouble for on the actual 911?
Ryan.
Ryan.
Ryan. I think
I
it was
got in
something-
trouble for Ryan, yes, because
It had something to do with Ryan.
When Ryan and I knew each other as young men, if I got in trouble for anything, I was like, Ryan told me to do it. He was my Bart Simpson, and I was his Milhouse.
And that's why you bombed the two towers?
Mike, do you have a guess about what I got in huge trouble for on the actual 911?
Mike,
Mike.
was it bringing a blade onto a plane and saying, I'm the captain now?
It was not. My dad woke me up and said, a plane has hit the World Trade Center, and I went, that's wild. And I went back to sleep. And he came into my room later, and he's like, a second plane hit the tower. What? Are you sleeping? And I was like, what? And he was so pissed off at me. Who was to blame for 9/11? Sleepy
Greg's
Greg.
dad.
Greg's dad. This is the first Universal Studios film to win the Best Picture Oscar since All Quiet on the Western Front. Winner of the award in what year?
Mike.
Ryan.
I think I heard Mike first.
2022.
Ryan? Do you have a better answer than
Get
Now,
in Ryan's head.
Greg, I don't know if I have the right answer, but I have a
broke
better
it, Mike.
answer for sure.
He had an answer loaded up, and then he was like, oh, I gotta catch my breath. What is it, Ryan?
I'm going to say 1929.
That's so fucking close. You're very smart, dude. 1930.
Ah!
That's just as dumb
But
as what I said.
It came out in 1929, so it won the 1930 Oscar for
That's
Best
true.
Picture.
That's true. Wow, that's pretty good. I'm giving Mike a point for that.
Awesome.
Is
Always
one-
talk.
This is one of only 2 movies to have won the Academy Award for Best Picture without having been nominated for any of the 3 Golden Globe Awards for Best Motion Picture, Best Drama, Best Comedy Musical, or Best Foreign Film. What is the other movie? So it was
Holy
nominated
shit.
for Best Picture, but it didn't get nominated in any of the major categories in the Golden Globes. Best Drama or Best Comedy Musical or Best
Does
Foreign
it-
Film.
Does this mean that it's so fucking American that
Yeah.
the Hollywood Foreign Press Association does not even recognize it?
It's a confusing result, but can you name the other movie that has the I'll give you a clue. It's Bad Company. It's not the
That-
movie Bad Company. I
I
mean,
was going to say it. Mike, company.
That's such a hard question. Can we get a year or a decade or
yeah.
a title?
it's
Could we get the title of the movie?
It's a movie from the 2000s.
Like the decade 2000 to 2009?
Mike,
Yeah, Mike.
Crash.
Yes, it's Crash. Thank
God
you.
damn it.
But yeah,
We
it
just-
doesn't.
We just played Dumb Cop, Smart Cop.
Mutt and Jeff, which Robert Redford calls those 2 guys here.
Hey, nice. You know what? That's a question I didn't ask, but you did answer.
Mutton Jeff, the guy who loves mutton.
Loves stewed mutton.
Do I smell somebody making mutton? No mutton, Jeff. Get the hell out of here. Jesus Christ. Has somebody
2
marked our
a.m.
house as a mutton house or something? Originally, screenwriter David S. Ward was supposed to direct, but Robert Redford objected. Why?
Ryan.
Ryan.
He never directed a movie before.
Yes, because apparently it's not very smart to just have somebody direct a feature film as the very first thing they ever do as a director.
And the GRH, like they had success, 4 years earlier?
Yeah.
Bring the team back together.
Yeah. Yeah, why not?
Get the hell out of here, David S. Ward.
Go
Did
write
he direct
Major
anything
League,
else,
you
do you know?
butt.
I am not sure, actually. Writer David S. Ward taped a 5-minute pitch of the project, but pulled a reading rainbow. What does it mean to pull a reading rainbow?
Mike,
Mike.
where you film just a book, but you move the picture slowly in front of the camera as if it was moving.
A good answer, a wrong answer. Ryan?
Ryan, jerk off on camera.
Don't
That's
accuse
awful.
LeVar Burton of
Yeah.
that.
No, pulling a reading rainbow is he had a 5-minute pitch, and then at the end of the pitch, it gets to when they're gonna do the sting, and he's like, and if you want to find out what happens at the end of the sting, give me money and make this movie. So he Scheherazaded them. I won't tell you the end until I get what I want.
I love it.
When evading Charles Durning, Hooker runs through a large homeless encampment. What were these encampments called, and why were they called that?
Oh,
Mike.
Ryan?
I heard Mike.
Hoovervilles.
Hoovervilles. Why were they called Hoovervilles?
Because President Herbert Hoover was the president during the Great Depression, and he real sucked.
Yeah, basically
He real
everything
sucked?
He real sucked. He was
Like
sucking
a
vacuum.
Hoover? He sucked like a Hoover?
He sucked like a Hoover. Well, honestly, get his number. Am I right? That is the end of trivia. When we come back, time to get more in depth on just one question. How could a script be this good and this bad at the same time? Does The Sting teach us what we're really looking for in a screenplay, or is it relying extremely heavily on the charm of its two leading actors? Mike?
You cannot take anything away from the charm of its two leading actors. They're the two most charming people who've ever lived.
Don't
if you
even
do, they're just
fucking
going to find a
try.
way to take it back.
Don't even try. Yeah, they'll con you for worse, and then you're going to be sitting there with none of your.
Now
own
we have
charm.
more of your steam than we ever did before.
But
Shit!
I think, and it's in this conversation. Think about not this specific one, but throughout the show, that the convolutedness of the script is part of its strengths. Like it's a feature, not a bug, and I think that other people would do worse, but if this Uvora is Patrick Wilson, right? If you take anybody out, how good will it be? I think even with two Patrick Wilsons, Patrick Wilson and Patrick Warburton,
and Patrick Wilson,
that
The
this
Sting 3.
is still a fun movie to watch because the screenplay is it zips.
Do you agree, Ryan, that it is at times an exceptional screenplay, but then it is other times kind of creaky and weird?
Before today, so I always read Ebert's review. Ebert, by the way, was 4 stars. Before we do a show, and I've started reading Pauline Kael's reviews because we're in 1973, so those are available to me. And Ebert said this was amazing. It's so awesome to see a movie about crime that isn't all blood and guts, but is fun and humorous.
Yeah,
right?
we don't know how to kill people.
And Pauline Kael is a lot of people love Newman and Redford. I don't. So, and I wonder if
He gave a thumbs down, audience.
yeah, sorry. This
And he did a mental raspberry.
means thumbs down. If you're not into Newman and Redford, then I think this movie is going to be rough for you. If you're not into Newman and Redford, I think your life is going to be rough for
what's
you.
wrong with you?
I don't
What
understand.
salad dressing do you even use?
Yeah, this movie would be one of the movies I would show you to get you into these two guys. And so if
Sure.
you're not going to like them from this.
There's 120 years of movies. I have to pick one. To show you the breadth of all 120 years, it might be The Sting, and we'll go from there.
Fuck.
Well, I'm going to show you some earlier arty ones, some newer blockbusters, but we'll go from there after The Sting. And so,
Birth of the Nation, Ryan? Is that what you're going to show?
absolutely, that's my number 2, 3, and 4. Let's watch it 3 more times until you are into this movie.
But you mean both problematic Birth of the Nations, right? The one from way back when with Griffith, and then the new one that got slammed because that director's fucked up.
I didn't look too much into the second Birth of a Nation's problematic stuff. Let's not get into it now. But in so many ways, this movie is this buzzword that I keep using on the show, undeniable. And
Yeah.
I think that if you're fighting against, like, look, I honestly could see this being outside of Westworld the lowest movie on our list at the end of the season. Not the worst, the lowest. And it's because it didn't transform us like so
Right.
many other movies from 1973 are going to. But to say like, well, this is just bullshit means that you're not paying attention and your arms are folded and your hipster
Right.
shit is
You
coming
went
out.
in angry and
Right.
stayed mad.
One thing that I think is tough it's tough to recreate the first experience of seeing this movie, and I feel like rewatching it is rewarding, but the magic is kind of gone. Like when you know from the beginning why Robert Redford is acting the way, why Hooker is acting the way he's acting in all his scenes, because the first time you watch it, you're like, so wait, is he actually betraying
Right,
Gondorf the whole time, or is he not? Like, even though you hear them planning this stuff, when Redford gets in the same room as Lonnegan, when Hooker and Lonnegan are talking, it seems kind of like Redford is legitimately turning on Gondorf. And then, so I feel like a little bit of that tension when you have already seen the movie is drained from it, and it's just a different experience. I don't know.
Right.
I think,
it's
yeah,
not
but-
as solidly rewatchable as you might think.
My advice to somebody like that is not to then think about like, what is this movie saying about class the second time you watch, or race the second time you watch, but instead of watching Redford and Newman, watch Eileen Brennan, who is doing so much with so little, or not Kid Twist, but who's the kid with the broken nose?
Oh,
who
yeah.
really wants to fight for Luther.
Who I assumed was going to blow up the whole thing.
Yeah,
I really thought
like,
he was going to ruin it all.
watch those.
Jack Cahoe, or the Erie Kid.
The Erie,
Erie
kid,
Kid, yeah.
Erie, Indiana, not Erie. like, ooh,
Indiana,
spooky.
Erie, Indiana.
Watch those performances, and they have to dance out of the spotlight because of what Newman and Redford hog.
Right.
You know, not shitting on them. Like, they deserve all that spotlight, but there is no spotlight left for them. And so one scene that always sticks out is Brennan's flirting with Charles Durning.
Uh-huh.
Like, oh, I've never heard of Gondorf. And then changing from Madam and then shutting the door and then walking down the hall with all those beers into con artist, part of the family, part of the group.
Right.
Like, these are things with no dialogue that these people are really, really pulling off.
You know what that sound means? We are going to the speed round. As the person Ryan just brought up, Pauline Kael of the New York Times writes that the film's absence of women really is felt as a lack in this movie. Do we, the three dude bros, agree that there is an absence of women in this movie? And do we have a problem with how women are portrayed, Mike?
I do think it's unfortunate looking at it 50 years later. Is that the right math? That the women in here are hookers or assassins and are all like the scene Ryan said, this actress is injecting so much into this character that the script is not giving her. You give Patrick Wilson that role, it's going to be so much weaker, and then I guess less women as well. But I think there's a dearth of women, and it's what the kind of thing where I'm like, is it the 70s, so we have to make peace with that? But it is. They're shown that they're whores or they're killers, man. That's all they are in this movie.
What do you think, Ryan?
It's fine. There's two women. Shoot one of them in the forehead. In hilarious 1973 blood action, and there's one black guy, throw him out a window. Like, that's...
I do have to say, I think she is right, but I do think her problem is with 73 because, and I would love to hear, and I know I will from you, Ryan, like her other reviews of some of the other movies, because 73 is a problematic year. Hollywood looked at feminism and went, we have to
Fuck
kind of
you.
reject this in a very obvious way, and the way they do it is a lot of like physical violence and a lot of just disturbing stuff. And so this movie, yes, a lady gets shot in the head, and yes, most of the other women are prostitutes, but I don't know. I just think that her issue is that the fact that 73 was having a really bad year in terms of
Plus-
how women were portrayed.
We have the power of hindsight. So she might have written in that paragraph afterward, be like, respect women in your films. Be like Woody Allen or Bernardo Bertolucci and just really appreciate women.
In 1983, The Sting 2 came out with Jackie Gleason replacing Paul Newman and Mac Davis replacing Robert Redford. It has a 0% chance on Rotten Tomatoes. So did we fuck up by not covering it in our 1983 season? Now, Mike, name some of the movies we watched in our 1983 season.
I honestly couldn't. Die Hard,
Right.
probably. Child's Play. We haven't done 83 yet, have we?
We haven't done an 83
Well-
season, no.
I wrote that in the future. We fucked up because we will not cover The Sting 2.
Ryan, are you sure that we're definitely not going to cover The Sting 2 in our 1983 season?
I'm so excited to see the furthering adventures of Mac Davis and Jackie Gleason. But
Hell
I can
yeah.
almost guarantee that if we move 1983 to 64 movies, we will not be covering this thing too.
It has a 0%. So there's like nobody out there that's protecting this movie
Yeah.
at all. We need a reverse review bombing. Ryan, how much better would this movie have been if it starred the lead singer of The Police and or WCW superstar Sting?
Oof. Now Sting was in Dune, yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
he
he
was.
So we've seen a little
The
bit.
singer Sting was in Dune.
We've seen a little bit of his acting. The WCW superstar. Greg, do you know about his acting talent?
Well, he's very good at being Sting. The thing that connects it oddly to this movie is Sting got really big when he completely rebranded his character to look like the character of the Crow.
Mm-hmm.
And how is that connected to 1973? There are a couple of Bruce Lee movies in 1973, including Enter the Dragon, which is the one he died making, or the last one that came out,
Yes.
something like that.
Something
Yeah.
like that.
After Tootsie, Dog Day Afternoon, The Sting, and this season's upcoming Sisters, should this just become a Charles Durning podcast, Ryan?
Should we? I mean, we could just watch Durning movies.
Yeah, dude. Call it the Durning Derby.
The Durning Dudes, new podcast.
Is he giving us anything like do we get shades of Durning? Do we get different Durnings? Or are we always getting the same damn Durning?
I think he's a great character actor, and you know what you're going to get from Durning.
You know what though? Like, do you guys think that obesity always plays into it? You know, like he's never gonna win. He's always like downtrodden. Maybe not.
Yeah.
In Tootsie, like he's sort of laughed at. Like, oh, you really think that you could have a romance? Dog Day is probably the one that we liked him the most because he was like, "Hey man, I'm just trying to do my job." Like
right.
Yeah, he's like, this whole situation's wild. I don't know what to do.
in The Sting, he's like, well, no, I have to prove how big my penis is, so I have to find this guy. I have to leave my city, my jurisdiction, in order to go find him.
Yeah, what he's
And it
doing
does not
is
work out well
crazy.
for.
I know he's a dirty cop, but like, keep that to your neighborhood.
All right. When we come back, it's time to give out some awards. Awards given only to the great, but not given, earned. Earned by titans of the screen. Let's start with pound for pound performance. Mike, who do you think delivers our greatest P for P?
I try not to do this, but I think, to use a word Ryan has coined, undeniable. The layers of acting Robert Redford is doing of, I'm Robert Redford being Hooker. I'm Robert Redford being Hooker trying to trick somebody right now. I'm Robert Redford being Hooker trying to trick somebody, trying to trick the audience so they don't know who I'm actually trying to trick right now.
Now, the fact that he says all of that before every line, is that weird for you?
It was
It-
weird they left that in there.
It added an hour and a half to the movie that maybe we could have cut out. But
Mike,
it's,
this
it's
is-
his shifting eyes, man, is like his fake nervous. You get to see his fake nervous versus his real nervous as Hooker. Like, it's wild.
This is Robbie Red's only nomination for Best Actor, and a lot of people say it's a tragedy he didn't get it. Would you go that far? Should he have won the Oscar for Best Actor in 73?
Without knowing who else he's up against, yes, everybody else
Definitely.
could die.
Wait, what about Best Supporting Actor for Winter Soldier?
He should have won it for that. He was Alexander Pierce is one of our greatest villains.
My
Ryan, who's got your P for P?
somebody different, but real quick, my Redford moment of the week is Gondorf knows that Charles Durning is out for Redford for counterfeit money, and he announces, but Newman announces it to the group. Like,
Yeah.
hey, does anybody know who might be spreading counterfeit money? And the way Redford's eyes dart around, like, yeah, who could it be, guys?
Hey, what? Huh? This is
Who
the
is
first I'm
that?
hearing about this. Not being the person that did it.
Am I saying that correctly?
We're dealing with two all-timers here. I believe that we call them The Verdict and 3 Days of the Condor, but I am going to nominate Jaws because I think that his
Quint.
feeling of who he is and who he should be in any room and when that's challenged, and then when you watch his face of like, should I cause violence because it was challenged, or should I sit and wait? And his grabbing of the gin, of drunken Gondorf's gin, or like anytime, and like he's already said, don't call me by a different name than Lonergan, or I will kill you. But like, he's just constantly looking around as this small child. Like he finds the gross babiness of being such a bully, and it's almost always in his face. It's literally never in the script.
It's a great argument, probably better than Mike's argument, but I agree with Mike's argument, so I choose to believe that.
Also, the true answer is Newman. So
that's the answer I have written down here.
Yeah.
But I'm only going to choose one of the ones that you selected. Okay, sometimes the movies of 73 cause us to cringe. Mike, what caused you to cringe?
I even my saying it's cringe is cringy, but I do think it's sex workers on a carousel because it feels like, look at them. They're children. All they want to do is make money on their backs or dance around in a little kid's toy. And I was like, come on, movie. Can't we give them anything else to do?
I think some of that you might have been reading into it, Mike.
I think Mike has some issues.
Ryan, what do you
With
think?
the movie.
What made you cringe, Ryan?
The moment that I cringe, which is a little bit like, you know, watching in 2023, can we be woker? But also from a screenplay standpoint, is we have been built up to believe that Salerno is this guy with the silencer, and then he plugs a woman in the forehead.
In the forehead.
And then he looks at Robert Redford and he's like, come on, man. I got paid to protect you. We should go run down the alleyway. And it's not only is it taking out one of two women in the script, but it's also the cheesiest twist. Like, it's not even a manly twist.
And
it's
the
a kid
movie's
twist.
like at such pains to be like, well, she had to wait until this point. Did she?
No.
She
Right.
had a lot of access to this dude.
This is the movie trying to move so fast that we don't notice that what the fuck is happening.
On it, there is no part of this movie that if you think about for even a couple seconds isn't like, wait, what? And that's part of why the pacing is breakneck. I am going to give that one to Ryan because that was sloppy. Ryan, what is the signature director's moment from this movie?
So comparing this to, I've seen a couple of Hill movies. Slapshot is the one I can think of right now. And
Slapshot's so much weirder than people fucking remember, dude.
Yeah, dude. It's not a classic Adam Sandler sports comedy. It's a strange movie. But he's never mentioned in any of these like new Hollywood lists, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is because he's a little Yowman, as we say, like a little work for hire. I think that the moment that really defines this movie as far as like his decision making goes is the moment we talked about earlier, where instead of starting a montage because it's silent, he starts a silent scene, and that's the haircut. I'm gonna get my fingernails done. It's just like, shit, I forgot to do this, and so now I'm gonna put this in the movie right when we need a couple of gags. And Redford he can be like creepy and leery on this one particular what do you call it, manicurist,
Esthetician.
So yeah, that's the one that I would say.
This guy's name is the director George Roy Hill. That means he's the king of the hill.
Yes.
Mike, what was your signature king of the hill moment?
I think it's when Cotton was bouncing up and down yelling at Hank about something.
Is anyone surprised that Michael go right for Cotton?
No, not at all.
It's just the character I relate to the most. It's I'm gonna say the way he transitions from not scenes but chapters of like and it's the way he ends the movie of like, and we just zoom in and so there's nothing black but the pinhole, and just like over and over again he's like, do
There's
you
all
get what
sorts of
I'm
wipes
doing?
you could use on this thing.
It's old timey, bitches. Like,
You guys both went for the old timey, which he was definitely trying very hard to do. I'm going to give it to Ryan with his like silent film scene.
And then over the end credits, Flo Rida sang the song "It's Old Timey Bitches." Like,
he's so good.
he's so good.
Okay, we are going to get into the special awards now, Ryan. The awards that have been submitted just for this. There are a lot of characters in this movie, Ryan. You may have realized that. If you could delete one of them, which character do you think this movie could do or without?
Guys, I love.
And don't say one of the ladies, Ryan, please.
I love. Is it Elaine? What is it? Gondorf's girlfriend so much in this movie.
Billy.
Billy. But it has to be Loretta. It's such a fucking tacked on plot twist of the people trying to kill Hooker implanted a restaurant worker months before.
On the off chance that he would go in there, and she works as a waitress like all night, so that he will perhaps hit on her and then get to go home with him, but only just to establish that like they know each other, so that she can betray him in broad daylight in an alley.
Now we have fucked each other, and you're asleep in my bed, which seems like the perfect time to kill you. I will not.
Too
I
many
will instead
people
wait.
could have seen him go in there.
I wish that there were so many other women that could have had bigger parts here. Loretta is my answer.
All right, very good. What do you say, Mike? Who could we have deleted?
We mentioned him a few moments ago, and he's very connected to Loretta. I think Even Dumber is the silent assassin. The guy we've been seeing from his POV for a while.
Not Salino.
Not Salino? Salerno. Yeah, I think we could get rid of Salerno.
The one that kills her, right?
The one who kills her.
Salerno.
And he kills the guy who's chasing Hooker.
I'm gonna go with that one. If somebody shoots your girlfriend in the head, or just a woman that you've like been intimate with, and then goes, "She was bad," do you right away go like, "Yeah, that must be true"?
Bro code, yes.
Yeah, dude, we have to.
It does feel like a bro code moment. It's like you get rid of one woman, you're like, "Oh, and she was a betrayer, of course."
Also,
So
let's be clear that Hooker's in love with Gondorf, and he is just fucking Loretta, so he doesn't have to say that he's gay.
Yeah.
The
Which is
Dom
why
and
we
Brian conundrum.
I am going with the assassin's assassin. I guess the unnamed assassin's assassin.
Okay, I'm writing that movie now. The Assassin's Assassin.
The assassin's assassin. All right, Mike. This movie features many wonderful costumes, but what is the best fit of the film?
I mean, I'd say worst fit is hard, right? Because like everyone looks incredible.
Honestly,
True.
yes,
Worst
dude.
fit would be harder.
I mean, there are some bad fits that go all the way back around to being cool, especially if they're worn by one of the lead gentlemen.
There's a moment when, and Redford, it's hard for him to look bad, but when he is like head to toe, and you can get too matchy, but he pulls it off like gray slacks, gray jacket, gray vest, gray fedora, and he looks so fucking good. And I want to dress like that all of the time.
Yeah.
Let's bring back ragtime, boys.
Did you say Greg time? I'm shocked,
time.
Mike, that you didn't go with Kid Twist, because that just
Yeah,
seems
it's
like
almost like pick a random Kid Twist scene
Yeah.
and a random still from it. That is the best fit in the entire movie. And if Kid Twist heard you say anything else, he'd probably con you out of everything you're worth. Ryan, does yours some sort of Kid Twist outfit?
It isn't actually. I just wrote down chocolate suit, and what this means is
Chocolate suit.
Good reference, Greg. I love
Thanks.
it.
What is that?
The kids are really into internet videos now, so I just thought I'd reference one of the good ones.
Is that a meme?
That is a meme. That's meme culture. I'm a meme lord.
Redford gets the money, goes right to in the very, very beginning, and we all know he's gonna blow it. But right when he's like dancing like a cartoon character, he puts on this like dark brown,
That's right,
just
yeah.
delicious looking chocolate suit, and he'll turn a
Yeah.
corner and just do his little step.
That's the one, and it's like he hasn't like found out about the world yet. I guess he's got like some sort of scam with the guy that runs the roulette table, and the guy's supposed to cheat for him.
Right.
But you have to know that if you walk in and put down $3,000, the guy can't just let you win
Yeah,
that and then
because,
walk
like,
out
you
of there.
idiot.
Jeez Louise. Yeah, chocolate suit winning all the awards again. Now, a segment that I would never forget.
It's your 9/11.
Or recommendation. No, my 9/11 was 9/11, okay? I got yelled at by my dad, remember?
I had dibs.
Did you get yelled at by somebody while you were sleeping? That's the most
worst
traumatic
thing-
way to be yelled
The
at.
worst thing to happen on that day.
Honestly, yes. I still haven't recovered fully. Mike, what do you recommend?
It's one of these things where there's such a good chance, because I love this movie so much that I've probably recommended before, but I couldn't get it out of my head, and it clearly would not exist without the sting. But Ryan Johnson's The Brothers Bloom. I do think it's his most underwatched movie, but it is Mark Ruffalo and Adrian Brody as con men around the world, and it is so fucking fun and charming and zippy, and Rachel Weisz is in it, and she's amazing. And
You have definitely recommended this before, but I have not watched it, so I have to allow it.
See, it's your fault.
Yeah.
And this is before Mark Ruffalo went into the Marvel Cinematic Universe and before Adrian Brody went into the Pianist Cinematic Universe.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Just
All
making
right.
awesome movies.
Brothers Bloom, check it out. Ryan, what do you say?
I love the idea of con men as the stars of the movie. My first thought was Matchstick Men, but I really did recommend that very recently. So I started thinking harder, went to our shared Hilton hotel room, thought as hard as possible, and I want to recommend a movie from 1990, I want to say,
Ew. Ancient history.
called The Grifters, which is about three people who all think that everything is going to work out for them like they're in this thing, like they are movie characters, and it doesn't. In the very beginning of the movie, John Cusack, who is the star, and one of the titular grifters, tries to pull a thing where he's like, hey, give me change for this 20, and then throws down a 1. And
the oldest hustle there is.
Yeah, and he gets busted immediately by the bartender, and the bartender kicks the living shit out of him. And so he's just about to die for the rest of the movie. Then his mom pops up, played by Angelica Houston. If you watch the kind of porn that Mike likes, John Cusack and Angelica Houston sort of have a thing together that you might notice. Annette Bening plays the girlfriend. This is a fantastic movie.
All right, wow. Two very solid recommendations. The one I'm going to recommend is another 73 movie that we're not going to get a chance to do a show about, I don't think. It's not in the bracket, and it's Day of the Jackal. And the reason is it reminds me very much of how this movie, Day of Jackal and The Sting, both do a thing where they show the audience a lot of what's going on, but then just withhold some elements, so the audience is like kind of in on it, but kind of still surprised. And that mix of like, ooh, I'm doing the con, but also like, whoa, wait, what's going on now? And then figuring out like, okay, that's how it's all going to come together. There's so much of that in Day of the Jackal, and the pacing is the same, which is it just like, here we go. We're like off to the races now, and it never slows down. So Day of the Jackal. But I'm going to give the point to Mike for the Brothers Bloom because I got to watch the Brothers Bloom. I got to do that.
And he didn't mention incest porn, so he should probably get the point.
And he did not mention incest porn. He also didn't mention Angelica Houston, but she was part of that other thing. So when we come back, I'm going to tally up the scores and to tell you who won the show for this evening. And we're going to talk about, even though it has been repeatedly stated, how we think this movie is going to do in the bracket. Well, Ryan, you got 43 points, but that's nothing compared to Mike's 46 points.
Oh, what
Mike,
the fuck?
You created the greatest con of all time. You beat Ryan in a game that had a trivia segment. That, honestly, I don't know, Ryan, if you've ever lost a game that had a trivia segment. But Mike, you did it, bud.
The con started what I call the great escapade.
The con is
5 years ago when I started watching movies very quote-unquote poorly to lure Ryan in, knowing that one day we would do The Sting. I've had your number since day one, my friend.
Can I just point out, and no, Mike, good victory, really. You deserve it totally, 100% for sure.
I'm going to listen to your words and not your tone.
That your recommendation is The Brothers Bloom, and then when Greg announces the winner, what do you do but quote one of the stars' most famous quotes from The Brothers Bloom, which is "Brat brat." Is that Adrian Brody?
My favorite character of his.
I'm going to have to dock you a couple points, Mike.
I'm a Brody boy.
You're still going to come out the winner as one of the Brody boys. At the top of the show, we kind of, as a focus of the show, we talked the whole time about like whether we thought this had what it takes to actually be a movie of the year. How did your opinion of the movie change at all? And we kind of thought that it wasn't going to do great in the bracket. Has that changed for anybody yet?
This will be the second worst movie in the bracket. Second lowest rate. To Westworld.
So Ryan's saying no, because that's what he said earlier.
No, right? Did anything change for you, Mike?
But if you had to say like, hey, I'm going to Redbox tonight,
right?
You're doing 1973. What should I get? It's The Sting for sure.
Yes, I think my opinion deepened. If that to say like it was already positive.
That's a way to say something without saying anything.
It got even better, but no, it's not going to do well in the bracket. So if part of it is always at least a dash, what does it say about 1973? And it's so old timey and trying to say so much about old Hollywood, that makes it really hard to stand out as a 1973 film.
Yeah, I feel like I had the same reaction you did, Mike, which is that my appreciation of it deepened. It's a little bit better than I thought coming into it, but it didn't really like move the needle a ton. in terms of like I think it's going to do better. Like I'll say straight up, Westworld has some good ideas, but is a bad movie. This movie is full of good ideas and is a good movie. It's just I don't know. It still doesn't quite have that movie of the year
It's
something,
too safe.
that little something.
The je ne sais quoi. I think that we sort of fucked ourselves by, or maybe it's good that we got these first two movies out of the way of like, here's like the dumbest of, or the lowest budget of 1973, what it has to offer. And then second week is like, here's what people were entertained by, you know?
Yeah.
And now we're about to dive into like what the new Hollywood actually means.
That real.
That
And
real,
we got
real.
a lot of great movies coming up. The Long Goodbye, Mean Streets, Paper Moon. Paper Moon, another Con movie? Maybe, Greg, who knows? Robin Hood, Serpico.
Another Con movie?
We've got our world famous tweeners, and more than anything else, we've got brotherly love for one another. And we've also got it for you, our studio audience, sitting silently and nodding in total agreement without making any noise. But that's all we've got for this show. We will see you next week. But until then, hey, do me a favor, would you? Keep watching them